It is the Beaver Banter Podcast. I'm CJ Baumgartner. That's Ian Rivers. In the middle is Jared Rubado, Bemidji Pioneer sports editor. And we have a lot to talk about on the podcast here today. It's a great day to be a Beaver. A lot of stuff has happened. We're pretty much doing it's a hockey only show today. It's a hockey only week because Bemidji State University is in the Mason Cup finals, and it's at the Sanford Center on Friday. Ian, opening thoughts. What the heck's going on in Bemidji?
A championship hockey game for the first time since, I believe, 2009 is going to happen. If you don't count regular season championship hockey games, I suppose. The Mason Cup final will be held in Bemidji, like CJ just said, this Friday. I guess get your tickets now at the time that you're hearing this. I mean,
it might already be too late.
Yeah, it might already be too late by the time you're hearing this because tickets are going fast. But I guess the moral of the story is don't expect to get tickets walking into the box office on Friday before the game starts because it is trending to be a sellout. It's going to be a whiteout. We'll get that out of the way right away. So if you don't have white, go purchase it because the green out was, Jared, I think you said it's basically dressed like a seat night.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Yeah.
So, hopefully the whiteout looks a little cooler. I didn't ever actually watch the Mason Cup final from 2022. I was busy that day. And I never actually got a chance to watch it. And of course, I don't know why, but the CCHA YouTube page does not have the highlights up. Maybe they scrubbed it because they were so embarrassed of what happened in the arena. But I wanted to relive the chaos and what happened. And Mankato did a whiteout that night. It looked really cool. So hopefully Bemidji can kind of replicate that. But yeah, I mean, what a great weekend it was. I mean, we'll touch on the game a little later. You guys were actually there. What did you think?
Jared, take it away.
Yeah, it was I was a little bit surprised, honestly, with how great the atmosphere was, just considering the opponent being Lake State and knowing that they weren't going to have a ton of people travel for that game. It was really, really cool to see the community show out for that. I know the players really liked it too. They were buzzing from it after the game. You could see their faces get a little bit wider. The smiles, the eyes popped when I asked Irie and McLean about what it was like to play a playoff game at home in front of that atmosphere. Sarah Torrey's been very vocal about the purpose of why they play and who they play for, and it's the community, the alumni, the fans, all of them, and I think it kind of came full circle. I don't want to say that the McNaughton Cup weekend was a letdown in terms of attendance because I think a lot of those Mankato people were banking on them playing on Saturday for something, playing for a trophy that Saturday, and it never came, so they didn't show up. But there is a buzz around town here, and it's contagious. It's a lot of fun to be there. I texted Micah Fries, who was the former Pioneer sports editor, and he's a huge basketball guy. He's been looking forward to watching all the March Madness games for the first time in like 5 years because there's always, Pioneer newspaper stuff that gets in the way. You can't just take off 4 days of work, but he was super excited about it. I think I'm going to get him out of it and get him to the rink too. And I just texted him. I was like, I have goosebumps for this game. And, those moments, those kind of pinch me moments are really cool. Even when you're, not there as a fan, but you're there to work and cover the game. It's what sports are all about. It's what hockey's all about. And I'd imagine this Friday will be the best kind of atmosphere a place like Bemidji could offer, similar to like the homecoming football game where they had to stop letting people into the facility because there were so many people there. And it's going to be a blast. I know Tech's going to bring a lot of fans. While Bemidji people might be a little, cautious of that, I look forward to that because I like the dueling atmosphere quite a bit. They're bringing their band. They're going to have a whole bunch of students. It's going to be a great time, and hopefully there's a lot of people wearing white there.
Yeah, and as somebody who went to that homecoming game as well for football, it was packed and it was fun to see that atmosphere because I'd been to football games, I'd worked and took stats, so I never had been in the crowd, and it was really, really fun. And even then, I don't think I'd been in a crowd that full at that football stadium, and there have been some important games there. So it was fun to be in that environment. Mm-hmm. And walking in on Saturday night, I drove up from my house, met some guys before the game, walked in the building, and I saw like the parking lot was pretty full, and I was like, okay, cool. Like we're getting pretty close. Probably got there about a half hour before puck drop, and just kind of cycling in. I was like, pretty good attendance.
Mhm.
And the more I just kept walking and looking, and the concourses were packed, and everybody, as soon as I got in, was already in their seat. It's the fullest I'd ever seen the Sanford Center, notwithstanding the UND series from a few years ago, where, people from Grand Forks drive over pretty regularly. It was packed with, there were tiny pockets of Lake State fans, but not really anything to talk about. It was full of people supporting Bemidji State, and I had never seen the Sanford Center like that. I didn't go to every single hockey game, so I can't say every single time, but there was an energy in the building, and it was just really, really fun. And what also helped is the fact that Bemidji State just dominated from puck drop to the end of the third period. Like there was at no point in the game where you really thought Bemidji State did not have complete control. And we'll get to kind of the game in of itself, but just on the vibe standpoint, the Sanford, that was the most electric I'd ever seen the Sanford Center. And everybody talks about stories. And I work with a guy who is a Bemidji State mass comm student in the 80s. And he tells me all the time about going to the Glass and how full it was and packed, and your ears were ringing for hours after you got out. And obviously it's not the same environment, but that's what Bemidji State envisioned going D1, was having a packed Sanford Center, was having a crowd like that, and having a team like this. It was just a really, really fun night of hockey.
And a point on top of that too, I usually get there hour 20 before the game starts, just, get settled in, do a bunch of pregame work and whatnot. And I got usually Brent sits to the right of me, Brent, the photographer for BSU. They got the live stats people that sit behind me. And, we can usually kind of tell when there's about 50 minutes to puck drop what kind of crowd it's going to be because of how many people will show up at the gate. We all kind of looked around at each other and were like, oh my God, there's going to be a good crowd tonight. Like you can just kind of tell as soon as the gates open what kind of crowd it's going to be. Polar opposite from some of those Thursday games this year where, it's tough to bring in people on a school night and whatnot. So yeah, it was the energy was palpable, and it was truly a great night. And let's hope that this community can kind of one up it again on Friday.
Ian, what did you see from watching it? Obviously, you were able to watch a little bit of the game, just kind of hearing about it. What was kind of your takeaways of the vibes of the Sanford Center watching it?
Well, I think that Jared made a good point about, or both of you made good points about how electric the atmosphere was. And I could tell just on my phone screen for the first two periods and then on my TV for the third period, how awesome it would have been to be there. For me, I was at the series right before COVID hit. I've talked about it plenty of times on here against Mankato. End of the season, you're trying to come back and get the 1 seed, and they won on Friday, and there was probably a similar atmosphere that night to this past weekend. And I'm just skimming over some of the attendance stats from games that I've been to this year. I've been to 5, and hopefully now, as long as something doesn't happen, 6 this coming Friday. I was at the Icebreaker tournament against Wisconsin and Army, pulled about 2,000 people a piece that weekend. Didn't think it was bad. I was hoping for a little bit better. And like Jared said, the McNaughton Cup weekend wasn't a disappointment, but I think it was kind of a low expectations thing based off what we'd seen the whole season. There was about 2,500 people for both of those games. And then the other game that I went to was a Thursday game, and that's something that I wanted to, or not, a Saturday game against Michigan Tech. Me and CJ got invited up by the football team to go and watch, the selection show. And so I went up a day early so I could go to the hockey game. And boy, am I glad that I did, because it was that crazy 6-4 comeback. And yeah, if Michigan Tech has a lot of fans there, it will hopefully be probably double the atmosphere that there was. There was about 1,700 people charted at that game, and a lot of them were Tech fans. Hopefully, if it's a similar amount of Tech fans, we have a lot more pushback on those. The dueling atmospheres will be a little bit better. And then, yeah, Jared, you brought up the Thursday games. Bowling Green Thursday game before Christmas break, 1,000 people, just over 1,000. And then the Ferris State one down here at the end of the season, 1,200. So, yeah, those Thursday games are rough on attendance for sure. But this one, I mean, yeah, it's charting to be a sellout. The game against Lake Superior State, I thought the crowd was a huge factor, especially after the first goal. Polkamp gets that goal right away, gets the crowd into the game immediately, and that place is just buzzing. You could feel it every time there was a play. I think there was that end of the second period, I think it was, where there was a 4-on-1 for Bemidji, and then Lake had a 2-on-1 coming back the other way. Just like you could feel the energy for that 2-minute stretch there of just pure chaos.
Yeah, I mean, it's with the Sanford Center, with some of these games, it's a great venue. We've talked about it. We've talked about how it's a new building. We talked about attendance stuff, and just to see that kind of stuff come to fruition and to see the community buy into this Beaver team. And look, it hadn't been easy because Bemidji State had been hurt for most of the year, and they really hadn't gotten to start playing their best hockey until the last few weeks. But now, with the unbeaten streak and with everything that they're in, it's complete buy-in from the community. And Jared, you mentioned kind of the buzzing aspect of Bemidji right now. What's it like just on the ground when you're walking through town? What's the feel that you get about the Beavers?
I mean, everyone's just waiting for Friday right now. That's the whole thing. It's every time I run into someone in public, they want to talk about Friday. Everyone wants to talk about what happened Saturday. It's the same thing online. I mean, it's the same energy all the way through. It's really, really fun to cover it. I mean, I keep having to tell myself I'm really lucky that I get to do it this year, that this is my first year covering the Beavers, because holy cow, it could have been a lot worse compared to the last couple of years, So, yeah, it's great. And I think what makes it really fun too is just the team too. I mean, there's so many good guys on this team, and each of them have a little bit of a story to tell. Each of them play a really integral part of how he got here, and we can talk about that a little bit more later. But I mean, there are some guys that just completely fly under the radar that if you remove that piece, they might not be here right now. Guys that everyone knows, the Juddings, the Loafs, the Polkamps, the Scholes, right? But I mean, there are so many guys on this team that play such a crucial part of this success that it makes it fun. And I think people around the town realize that they're becoming connected with these players because the players want to be connected with them too. And that's probably the funnest part.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, Jared, there's, I think the Friday game against Ferris State a couple weeks ago, we're missing Kirkland Irie, and it threw off the lines just a little bit. And you could tell it was a little bit of a struggle, at least for the first part of the game, to kind of get things figured out because they're so used to playing with their guys right now. And you take one cog out of that, and Irie's a first line guy. He's a top line. He's a pretty important player, but you take one little piece away, and it makes it so much harder to work. And what a time now to be back and fully healthy. Got Fulmer back last week even. So, I mean, this team is just it feels like they're a team of destiny to steal that line from somebody else. It just feels like it's come together at the right time this year.
And going back to that, like with Irie missing that game, it did impact three lines specifically, because Irie moved off that top line. They moved Carter Jones up to that line, and it left Flemang and Yuri Visden without a winger. And that winger became Dante Lawson, and it created a hole on the fourth line, which was plugged by Alexander Lumen. That's three new lines in the middle of a big winning streak that they had to kind of alter. And they got through it. And I don't know how much the difference of lines played into it. I know they did underestimate Ferris just a little bit in that game. Eric Martin admitted it a little bit that they didn't expect them to come out and play that intense. But but when you win a game like that, where you don't have your best game, it almost gives you an extra boost going into that next series. And Ferris, that was their only push. I mean, that was the only push that they were going to have, and they needed to steal that one on Friday, and they were hoping to get that to a 3-gamer. But Bemidji State obviously comes out, gets a shutout the next night, and starts hot this past Saturday, and it just kind of kept, the snowball rolling a little bit, and they're rolling right into Michigan Tech. But, I mean, if you want to throw out the team of destiny thing, I think that could also apply to Michigan Tech right now too.
I don't know that
Yeah.
I'm buying that so much, but we'll see. I know that they're hot right now, and
They've certainly gotten a lucky bounces, if you will.
yeah, sure.
We'll save that, but
We'll save
there is
We'll
that,
save
yeah.
that for the end. But yeah.
things like that don't happen if you don't have that team of destiny vibe going for you as well.
Right.
Exactly.
True. Yeah.
Exactly.
So look, go ahead.
Let's
CJ.
I was gonna say let's talk about the game on Saturday night against Lake State. And as mentioned before, Bemidji State from puck drop to the end of the game, outside of maybe like the last little chunk of the second period, Bemidji State was in total control of that game. I mean, they only allowed 3-5 shots in that first period. So really that entire game of Bemidji State was just in sync. And what did you see, Jared, from Bemidji State in that game?
I mean, I think you saw their identity kind of push through first and foremost. They allowed 4 shots in the first 30 minutes. That's it. 4 shots for the first 30 minutes of that game. That's exactly the kind of way that Bemidji State wants to play hockey. Lake State got that goal back, and it really gave Lake State the push it needed to get back into that game. And that's where Matthias Scholl showed up. Matthias Scholl, I can't remember how many saves he made. Maybe it was like 13 saves, but there were 3 or 4 of those saves that were big time, especially on that 2-on-1 in the third period. Jared Westcott, one of the league's leading scorers, had the puck on his stick with a chance to pull him within 1. And if it's 3-2 in there, I mean, that now turns into anybody's game. There's the common adage that a 2-goal lead is the toughest lead in hockey to protect. But, starting fast was definitely what Bemidji State needed. Earlier in this year, probably first periods were their boogeyman, and they could not put together a coherent first period to save their life. You look at those for that first series in Lake State, the Michigan Tech game where they lost 4-0, the Michigan Tech game where they won 6-4, they go down 4-0 again. Mankato, when they go down, and obviously that big upset, or not that big upset, but that big comeback, they started bad in that game too. And it was weird because they'd figured out a little bit those North Dakota games. They did play really well in those first periods, but they kind of evolved out of that, even when the games weren't necessarily going their way like they were through, the end of December through the end of through the middle of January. And they kind of grew, even though they grew out of it, they almost like reverted back to it against Ferris State. And even in the series against Mankato, where they outscored Mankato 8-0, they didn't have a first period goal in that series. They trailed twice against Ferris State, once in the Mason Cup quarterfinals, and on Make-A-Wish night they were down 1-0 in that game too. So I think the emphasis of them starting out much better was very prevalent. And the hottest player maybe in the country right now, Eric Polkamp, with an absolute snipe. I have no idea how he got that first shot through. There were 3 bodies in front of the net. And a lot of credit on that play needs to go to Yuri Vizinen, who has struggled, and I mean struggled, on faceoffs this year. He won that draw cleaner than I think he's won any draw this year, right to Polkamp. And on the play before it, too, he won a clean one to Carter Jones. They run this faceoff play where the winger on the sidewall kind of loops around, cuts off the defenseman. The other far side winger will loop back to the end of the net. It basically gives you 2 options depending on what the defender is going to do. If the defender cuts down the shot, you have a backdoor pass for the goal. Or if the defender takes the backdoor forward, now you have a clear one-on-one with the goalie, and you can kind of do whatever you want from there. That's a play they've run 100 times this year, and it's worked. And so Yuri Vizinen deserves a lot of credit for winning those faceoffs and getting those chances. The other thing too, that faceoffs have been horrible for Bemidji State this year. They are bottom 10 in the country every year in faceoffs. Saturday night was probably one of their best faceoff games of the year. I don't have the specific numbers in front of me, but like Leighton Road won 60% of his faceoffs. He's not a center. He plays center, but he's not a center. Yuri Vizinen won over 60%. Judding wasn't one of their top faceoff getters, and he's the only one on the season that's over 50%. I'd have to double check that because Jake McLean is hovering around 50% too. But it was a complete execution of what their game plan is, aside from the last 7 minutes of the second period where Lake State got a little bit of life. I think it was a little bit concerning in the third period that Bemidji State wanted to do this end-to-end rush game with Lake State. Lake State plays with a ton of speed. I mean, they have so much speed and forward depth that that's their game. They want to get into that end-to-end rush, let Ethan Langenegger make a big save, use it in a counterattack. And Bemidji State was kind of like okay playing that game, which was really bizarre. They got to that media timeout, they settled down, and they just started dumping the puck in over and over and over. And that is Bemidji State hockey. Dump pucks, play a 1-3-1 structure on a 1-3-1 defensive structure in the neutral zone, and just finish every single check. They're going to dump 100 pucks on you and get 100 hits on you, and they're going to make you beat them with your speed. And it was cool to see that kind of play out in real time. And for a lot of fans, it's hard to kind of like assess the things that they do. It's easy to just say, why do they keep dumping the puck in? Why don't they just carry the puck in? Why don't they shoot more? It's like, this is the identity of this team. They are defense first, physicality first, pick up the scoring, as you go along. But that's where Bemidji State makes its bread. And when Bemidji State plays like that, and they play and they are committed to playing that, that's why they have the longest winning streak in the country right now, is because they're committed to playing to their identity. And in the end on Saturday, that's what showed through.
Yeah. Couple points as you were going through there. The starting fast, and that's a big reason why Bemidji State needs to start fast in a lot of games, because everybody says it. If you listen to Mankato broadcasts from 6 years ago, they always say you cannot let the Beavers get a lead on you, because they are the hardest team in the conference to come back and try to take that goal back from them. So the Beavers being able to start fast is a huge key in almost any game that they play, just because of the way that they play. And I think that a part of the reason that they are able to start fast is because Lake State might be the one team in the country that's worse at starting fast.
Yes.
I know that that's been a huge bugaboo of theirs the whole year. They said the stat on air. It was like 25 of their games they have not scored the first goal this year, like something ridiculous. And they only have won a couple of those games. It's unbelievable. But yeah, the pole camp goal, see it. It happened so fast off the draw that they were not even done showing the replay of whatever had just happened. And all of a sudden the puck's in the back of the net. And yeah, he just took that one little bit of a step towards the middle of the ice and ripped the shot. It was just beautiful. And then, yeah, the other thing you mentioned that I wanted to touch on was the end of the second period was extremely dicey. Lucky they got through that with a 3-1 lead, because I think that goal kind of Lake Superior State. They were a little bit probably deflated. They had a tough series, bunch of long drives on a bus, I'm sure, back and forth to Sault Ste. Marie. I, for some reason, last week said Sault Ste. Marie like 6 times, even though I know that it's Sault Ste. Marie. So my excuse is that clearly I know that Lake Superior State players listen to this podcast, and I was trying to get in their head.
We're doing a little bit of trolling.
Right, yeah. No, yeah, so for some reason I said Saul. It's Sault Ste. Marie, but yeah, long bus rides. That goal seemed to reinvigorate them, and that the last 7 minutes of that period were hold on to your butts, because they're throwing everything they can at Shoal right now, and the Beavers just seem to a little bit shocked by the kind of the reinvigoration there in the Lakers lineup. But yeah, I mean, I think Saratori even said, like,
yep,
he had to tell the players, don't chase the fourth right now. Like, the fourth goal will come if we play our game. Like, it seemed like for a while they were kind of trying to get that fourth goal to get that 3-goal lead back. That's not our game. Play Beaver hockey, and the offense has been working just fine over the last month and a half. So that's a good point.
Yeah, they were playing to get to the end of the third, and I know that because that's a direct quote from Saratori. He said, honestly, we just needed to get to the third period up 3-1. That was their goal, and that was what the same message came from Irie, the same message came from McLean, and the same message came from head coach Damon Whitten of Lake State, where he's like, we just needed to get another one in the second period. And maybe even if they get that one in the third on that 2-on-1 from Westcott, it still gets a little bit more dicey. But they I think once they got to that media timeout in the third period and everything kind of settled down again, that's when you really saw, the Beavers just kind of, put a vice grip on that game in terms of, controlling the play and controlling the pace and dictating the terms. And that's when Bemidji State's at their best. It's when they can dictate the terms of the game. That's when they're, that's what makes them a successful team. That's what makes them a top 20 team in the country. And so, yeah, it's been really fun to see them kind of, find their identity in the second half of the season and apply it on this big winning streak.
I got to bring up Irie's goal too, because that was
disgusting.
A work of art, dude. I mean,
Jared, I think you in the paper, did you call it greasy in your post-game write-up?
No, I called McLean's goal greasy.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
That was a greasy goal.
They were polar opposites, like a minute apart. Like,
yeah, 58 seconds apart when they scored. And no, Irie caught that pass. That play was Tony Fulmer deserves a lot of credit on that play. Leighton Road made a nice play in the D zone. Went essentially D to D with Fulmer, and Fulmer put a 2-line pass right on Eric Martin's stick, right on the far blue line. Marty dished a nice sauce pass to Irie, who came in full speed from the red line and caught it in stride. He immediately had a Lake State kid on his hip. He's a left-handed shot, and so he had to pull it back far to his left, almost like he was on his backhand, and somehow he pulled it all the way back to his forehand, and I think it surprised Langenegger. Langenegger went down way early, and Irie just said, yeah, it was just kind of a chip shot, went off the post and in. But, I mean, it's you as a goalie, you don't expect to get that kind of a shot off when you have defense, and it's not something either where, Langenegger goes back to the locker room. It's like, man, I should have had that one. Or the defenseman's like, I could have defended that one better. That's just a really tough play to defend. And there's not much you can do to stop a play like that. And so, yeah, it was really, really good to see Irie get a goal like that, because even though he's been a huge contributor to this team, he doesn't always get rewarded for some of those contributions. So it was cool to see him get to pick up one there. And for Jake McLean's goal, this is, I know you like pushing your Kirkland Irie agenda. I got an agenda I'd like to start pushing, and that's Mitch Wolf. There is few players on this team who have benefited more from a pairing change, a line change than Mitch Wolf. I think he had 2, maybe 3 points through the season, through when they started playing against Michigan Tech. That's when they switched him with Vince Corcoran and put him with Polkamp. Mitch Wolf's almost a point per game since then. He had a play in the first period where Polkamp pinched on the far blue line and joined the play offensively. There was a turnover, and it started a 2-on-1 rush. Probably not the best pass. I believe it was Harrison Roy from Lake State tried to make a cross-ice pass in the neutral zone. Mitch Wolf picked it off and immediately started a rush going the other way. That is a two-way defenseman at his finest, to be able to turn defense into offense in the span of seconds. On the Jake McLean goal, Mitch Wolf had nobody in front of him. He walked across the blue line, almost like he was skating backwards. I can't remember if he was skating backwards, but he walked across the blue line. He had all day to shoot, and instead he held it and tried to feed a pass to Reese Chittington. Now that pass got tipped in front of the net, but it bounced around all those bodies. Jake McLean with a backhand whack, almost like a baseball batter, like a backhand tennis swing, and just gets one to squeak through Langenegger. That's a heads-up play by Mitch Wolf that doesn't happen if he's looking to shoot there. And he's just so smart with what he's doing with the puck right now. And I think a lot of that comes from playing with Polkamp, because if Mitch Wolf's at his best when he doesn't need to be relied on a pairing to provide that defensive offense. Now, he's not that kind of guy right now playing with Polkamp. Polkamp's going to jump in the play 100 times a game. There's a reason why he's like one of the shot leaders in the conference as a defenseman. And I looked at the numbers yesterday. There's not a whole lot of defensemen inside the top 25 that are leading the league in shots. And Polkamp's one of them. So you're going to get offense from him when he's on the ice. Mitch Wolf's game is at its best when he's able to be a stay-at-home defenseman, but still has those opportunities to jump up offensively. So I don't think enough can be said about a guy like Mitch Wolf right now. And I wrote a little bit about him last week, and he got his first goal against Mankato on senior night, and that was really cool to see. But he's just doing everything right now. And when you have role players, a sophomore like Mitch Wolf, find a time to break out during this win streak, that's crucial. Obviously, getting Loaf back, getting Jutting back, getting Scholl back, all of them, those are your big pieces. Those are your stars, and you need your stars to perform well, to go on a big run like this. But they can't do it alone. So guys like Mitch Wolf, guys like Jake McLean, Reese Chittington, Dante Lawson, Tony Fulmer, being a guy when he's playing, he's one of my favorite quotes all year that I've from a player was, I asked Tony Fulmer, because he got his first point after like 80 career games, and I wanted to do a little story on it. He's like, I'm only worried about blocking shots and making the first breakout pass a clean one. You know how crazy that is to say that? Is like, you don't give a rip about anything else other than blocking shots and making clean breakout passes. But who I bet loves hearing something like that? It's Tom Serratori. And it's so they all play a really crucial factor in this. And so I want to give Mitch Wolf his flowers, because that second goal doesn't go in without Mitch Wolf. And maybe there's another one in the back of the Beaver net if he doesn't make that play in the neutral zone to stop that 2-on-1.
He almost had another goal too. A very similar play to the goal he scored against Mankato. Kind of just dipped to the back post a little bit, and Langenegger was able to save it. I can't remember who fed him that pass out in front, but yeah, he almost had another one. He's been great, and the whole defensive core, honestly, like that's something that middle of the season I was like, man, without Polkamp and without Loft, we might be just cooked, man. Like. And now it's like, man, obviously those two players are very important to the defensive core, but like Vince Corcoran, Tony Fulmer, Will Magnuson, all of these guys I have the utmost confidence in. And it's credit to Serratori. He does it a lot with defensemen. There's not really a weak one that you have out there that you're really like, oh man, like we accidentally got matched up on the top line for Minnesota State, and now it's trouble. Like, no, I don't really feel like that. And that can be said offensively too. I think there was a spot in the end of I can't remember if it was at the end of the game or the end of the second period where the fourth line kind of got caught out there against Westcott and Milburn. I think it was like an icing or something, and they couldn't change towards the end of the period, and they held their own, and they kept them in the game. So defensively, this team is just doing everything right lately. I think they're under 2 goals a game allowed in this unbeaten streak, and they're averaging 4 a game offensively. It's been nuts production wise. Like, you don't see that production a lot offensively from Bemidji State. Yeah,
I think they're 1.7 goals against, and they're during this winning streak, and like you said, 4 goals during this winning streak. Shout out Lucas from Beaver Territory. He tweeted that out. So Tom brags about that literally every Tuesday during the press conferences. So
Nice.
Well, I think another stat by Lucas, we talk about the unbeaten streak, was the fact of that. I think it's their longest since being a Division I school. And it's just been impressive. And, it's fun because we end up looking right, Ian, because on the podcast all year, we're like, this team is good. They're just not healthy. Like, they're not healthy. They need to get everybody back. Because at the beginning of the year, we talked about how this is a talented team and they're going to be pretty good. They got banged up and we never quite saw it. But as soon as they started getting healthy, we kind of chimed the bell of like, these guys are going to be pretty good. Now, I didn't think we were going to predict an 11-game unbeaten streak good, but we did think that they could make some noise in the CCHA, especially with how down the conference has been this year. And this is where it gets us to the Mason Cup championship game against Michigan Tech. Now, boys, there's 2 ways we can go about this. We can either talk about how Michigan Tech got there, or we can preview Michigan Tech and then talk about how they got here. Which route do we want to go?
I want to talk about how they got there.
Okay, Absolutely. Let's do it.
Yep.
If you're listening to this and you haven't seen on Twitter, then you're just not on Twitter, because it's been the only topic of discussion from the CCHA this weekend. Look, the Michigan Tech got their first goal on a kick goal. They reviewed it. Minnesota State challenged it, and it was deemed a good goal. Minnesota State retook a 3-2 lead, third period. They go on the penalty kill after, again, kind of an iffy call, but I can understand that one. Real time, that's bang, bang. It's 50-50 call. You got to stomach that one if you're a Minnesota State fan. Play goes to the front end. I believe there's about 1:20 seconds left on the power play, about 4.5 minutes left in the game. Jacob Stender, who is an Alexandria native, I covered him in Alexandria. That's the only reason who I knew number 18 was, but fell to his knees, made a motion to cover the puck. I want it clear that he did make a motion to cover the puck. Now, his hand was on the top of his stick, and his hand went down and immediately up, and the referee comes in behind the net, blows the play dead, and immediately whistles penalty shot. Now, the call on the covered puck is 50-50. I truly think that's 50-50, because while he may not have covered it, there was an intent to cover it. And that's when you can start arguing the semantics of, should that have been called a penalty shot? Should that have not been called a penalty shot? All of the things that come with that. I don't care that Logan Pietolo, I don't care that he wasn't on the ice. That doesn't bother me at all, because that's part of the rule book. If you're, the captain can designate any player to do it. And so he took the penalty shot and scored. The problem with the play was the kicked goal, because Jack Works was in front of the net. He was tied up by a Minnesota State defender. The pass was off target a little bit, so he rotated his hips around and extended his leg outward and kicked the puck into the net. I have no clue how, between all four angles of that play, that the refs came to the conclusion that it was not a kicked goal. So you go on Twitter, you see everyone, whining about it and all of the stuff that comes with it. And the discrepancy there is, the terminology. Did he propel the puck into the net, or did he direct the puck into the net? I don't think you can make the argument that he directed the puck and didn't propel the puck, because the puck does not go into the net if you don't propel the puck into the net. He made a clear kicking motion toward the net, and the puck then went off his skate and into the net. The problem with that is Minnesota State had to use their challenge. And you can challenge again if you lose your challenge, because all you do is you lose your timeout. So because Minnesota State didn't have their timeout to burn, now we go back to the third period and we look at what happens on that play. Because that was called on the ice a penalty shot, there has to be inconclusive evidence that it was not a penalty shot shouldn't have been rewarded. By the way, if they review that play, there's 10 minutes where everyone's just standing there with nothing to do, because you could have watched that 1,000 times and come up with 500 different conclusions each time. But if you look at it from Luke Strand's perspective, and the weight or the risk of challenging that, knowing that if you fail, you have another 2 minutes in the box. If you lose that challenge, Michigan Tech still gets a penalty shot. They get 1:20 of 5-on-3 and an extra 40 seconds of 5-on-4, all trying to protect a 1-goal lead. It would be nonsensical to challenge that. So I don't necessarily have a problem with anything on how it played out. I personally don't think he covered it. I don't think that Stender covered the puck. I think the overhead angle, you can see the puck, the edge of the puck hanging out under his glove, which means he didn't cover it. But that's not my decision to make. And the call on the ice, I'm not going to patronize a ref for, he went with his gut, and he made the call that he thought he covered it, and a review may have told him otherwise. But again, that's the human instinct of sports. So I don't necessarily hate the on ice call of a penalty shot. I thought it was a little crazy that it was immediately called a penalty shot. There was no officials convening to talk about it, discuss what they saw, and then go it. He just ripped off right from the gut that it's a penalty shot. Fine, I guess. I mean, that's, it is what it is. But the problem with that is they didn't have legs to stand on when it came to challenging it. And that's where I start getting a problem with, the the wave of Michigan Tech people saying, well, if there was a problem, why don't you just challenge it? Well, you got to have a little bit of thought process and the logic of why you shouldn't challenge that goal.
From Tech?
Yeah.
Logic?
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
So to me, it always goes back to the kick. And, it not only did Jack Works kick that puck in, when you grow up trying to learn how to play soccer, one of the first things they tell you is don't kick it with your toes, you kick it with the side of your foot. It was a picture perfect soccer kick into the net. And I'm just dumbfounded. I'm dumbfounded that it was called a kick. Again, people are going to argue the semantics of propelling the puck into the net or directing the puck into the net. But when you look at the definition of propel, to push the puck in the net, he quite literally pushes the puck in the net with a kicking motion from his skate. And side note on one of the more awkward parts of this. So the head official, Marco Hunt, was in Bemidji on Saturday. He was sitting in the press box a couple seats down from me. And as this was unfolding, it looked like he saw a ghost. Like his face got a little white. He was sitting there, and not in the sense where I'm sure he, thought they made the wrong call or anything. I don't know what was going through his head. Maybe it was just the onslaught of backlash they were going to get from a play like that. But oh man, in a playoff game like that, it's a really tough call to make. And the other thing too, I could have cared less who won that game. I honestly could. I think both teams provide a really tough matchup for Bemidji in a do or die, win or go home game. That's not the point. I don't care if it's Michigan Tech, Mankato, Lake State, whoever. Doesn't matter. Every single game that Bemidji would play, or every team that Bemidji would have played this Friday, would have been a tough game regardless, because that's what the CCHA is, and that's what playoff hockey is. Mm-hmm. I just think that it's a really tough time to have that much confidence in calls that boldly. And it's and the other thing too, I don't think we can sit here and say that without those calls Mankato would have won, because Michigan Tech again was on a power play. They have a power play down a goal. Even if you take away the Works goal in the first period, the rest of the game plays out differently. There's there's a butterfly effect to that game. I think a lot of Minnesota State fans are just conveniently forgetting that they were drastically outplayed in the first period. There was a misplay on a zone entry that allowed Lucas Sauter to get that snipe. But when you look at the way Michigan Tech plays, they don't play well defensively on those zone rushes. They give too much time and space. That's been one of their biggest problems all year, is finding cohesive and consistent defensive play out of their defensemen. They lost some seniors. The transfer portal kids weren't, coming in and playing to the level that they thought right away. There's been a lot of freshmen that have had to grow on the fly, and that's just the process of a hockey team. Bemidji State went through some of those same processes, obviously not with the transfer portal, but when you have guys go down with injuries and Noah Quinn and Reese Chittington are playing on your second line, that's not how you drew it up before the season. But, so I don't want to sit here and say, well, Mankato would have won that game if it weren't for those calls. They wouldn't have. I mean, maybe they would have. We don't know. They would have had a better chance at winning that game. I don't like doing the refs cost us this game argument, because that's almost never the case in that instance. There's still game left to be played. But when it's all said and done, I think they did miss the call on the kick. I have no idea if they missed the call on the cover, and it sucks that it plays out like that. But on the flip side, I think a lot of those Minnesota State fans are going to be pulling for Bemidji this weekend in a wild turn of events.
Yeah, crazy. I'm not going to sit here and rehash it all, because I think you did a great job of covering every bit of it. I would basically just be repeating what you said, because I agree with every point you made. But yeah, like just the fact that the kicking, the Works goal didn't get overturned even after it was challenged. Yeah, sure, he didn't like stick his foot 2 feet in the air and kick it into the net, but like he moved his foot towards the puck hit his skate, and then it went in the net. In my opinion, it can't be any more cut and dry than that. If it's an instance like you're standing in front of the net and you're looking at a cute girl in the front row and the puck just happens to hit your skate and go in the net, then it's deflected into the net, and sure, it doesn't count again, or it counts as a goal. That's fine. He clearly made a kicking motion, and then, like you said, it just spirals towards the third period where now, like you said, you can't take that risk of not only having it be a penalty shot, but now you're also 5-on-3. And the worst that could have happened if you just accept it and lay down is maybe the game is tied. We got to kill the rest of the penalty, but we should get to overtime. That's not even counting the crazy goal by Pietola that ricochets off of Tracy, off of the end wall, back towards Tracy, and gets punched into the net by like a Mankato player trying to clear it out of the zone. Just nuts. And it's, Michigan Tech ends up winning the game. And I think, like you said, the Works goal in and of itself, if they disallow that, it's not going to change the game entirely. It will, but you never know how the end of that. You're not saying that's going to make Mankato win. You don't know how it plays out. Right, exactly. The whole game. That's the first period. That didn't happen with 6 seconds left in the game. That's what I hate. My least favorite take in the NFL, and I do want to touch on the Michigan Tech game, but it's the Saints-Rams pass interference from the 2018. Well, the Saints got the ball first in overtime. They would have had a chance to win the game still. The Rams should not have been able to touch the ball again in that game. And I know that you guys are Vikings fans. You hate the Saints, so you're like, oh, we could care less. But
you're right.
The Saints get a free first down on that, and then they can waste the time and kick a field goal at the end of the game. The Rams don't even sniff the ball. So I hate when people are like, well, the Saints still got a chance to end it in overtime. It should not have even gotten that far. And again, you guys are Vikings fans. You could care less. That's in the past. That's all fine and dandy. But just ridiculous from both fans. But you know what? I don't really care because it happened to Mankato. So screw them. Like you
in
said,
the face
Jared,
of everything, Ian still finds time for a horns down. So that's
right. Oh my
I do want to point out though, I don't know. I can't remember what player batted it down and into the net with 6, 9, whatever, how many seconds left.
Yep.
Oh my God. That's the longest off season you'll ever have. I mean, it's just the human element of sports where you just you just want a game to end normally. Obviously it's tied in that moment, and that game is not a normal game, regardless of how it ends. Even if Minnesota State wins that game, it's still not a normal game, but you just want it to end on a clean goal. And it's just gutting for that kid. Even the Works goal, Tracy got a foot on that. He had a foot on it, hit his pad and went in. That's it's tough. And I get the rivalry between Minnesota State and Bemidji State. And, like I said, I'm an Augie kid. I didn't like Minnesota State while I was there either. But, to see two kids that are just that have to wear that until October. I mean, it sucks. It leaves a pit in your stomach. And, maybe it's easier to cope with it knowing that, you could have gone a little differently without some of those calls. But at the end of the day, it's just tough. And, one more thing that I don't want to say call out, but I saw a lot of the refs aren't allowed to make mistakes, but the players are. Spare me with that. I hate the argument of it's a human element, and there's the refs are allowed to make those mistakes, or what about the mistakes the players make? I hate that argument, because every single player in every single game could do things differently, and it could impact the game one way or another, and that's just how sports go. That I'm not saying that we need to completely dog walk refs for every single mistake they make. That's not the answer. The answer is, and I don't even, when people say well, why don't we hold the refs accountable? I don't even know what that means. The people that want to suggest that refs
press conferences, man.
It means that I get to yell at them. That's what it means.
Right. And it's people, you see it too, in so many times in the NFL or the NBA, where people are, well, why don't the refs have to do a press conference? To do what? What would I ask a ref? Hey, why did you make that call? Oh, because I thought the call was right. Boom. There you go. That's the whole thing. So spare me with that stuff too. But I think the constant trying to defend a bad call, find verbiage that makes that maybe poor call a better call through the rule book or through past experiences. Just it's okay if you're a fan and you get a bounce to go your way. Nobody's blaming you. Nobody's going to come at you as a Michigan Tech fan and say that, you should feel bad for winning that game. That's not, and if people do want to say that, those people are stupid, because it's just such a weird thing to be like, well, because my team benefited from this, I now need to stick up for the refs for making this bad call. Just leave them alone. Like, Minnesota State fans are going to cry and cry and cry on Twitter, and they have every right to do that because they felt like those calls jeopardized their chances of winning the game, and it did. But that's fine. That's sports. We don't need to sit here and bang out for the refs because they made bad calls and try and find these little loopholes in the rules to do it. It doesn't do anything. And you come off sounding like just a complaining loser in it. Like that's what you sound like. And so it's crazy to me that that's the takeaway for a lot of officials in that, or for a lot of fans and officials, is like, well, my team benefited, so now I have to go defend the refs for making this controversial call. Just leave them alone. You're in the championship game. Take the win. Just move on. So
a lot of this effort for whoever would have won that game, no matter what, just to end up losing to Bemidji State on Friday night anyways. So, it's a lot of work up about nothing. All right. We got 10 minutes left in this podcast here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the game on Friday night, guys. What are your perspectives? What do you expect this game to be? What's kind of the game plan for Bemidji State? What do they need to do to win?
I think this game hinges so much on Blake Pietola. At his best, he's one of the most talented goalies in the country. There's no denying that. He's at his best, he is as good of a goalie as you can find in college hockey. I think the times we've seen him at his best have been few or far between, or one night on, one night off. And a perfect example of this was the series against Bowling Green in the quarterfinals. He gets a shutout night one and then lets in, I think, 5 goals on 15 shots the next night. I think he played all right against Minnesota State, but he still gave up some goals that Blake Pietola isn't, the caliber of goalie of Blake Pietola shouldn't be giving up. If you're one of the top goalies in college hockey, there should rarely be times where pucks beat you on clean shots that you can fully see. Lucas Sauter's shot was a great example of that. Even the toe drag shot on Mankato's third goal, that's not a goal that Blake Pietola gives up last year. He's giving up those goals now. So what kind of Blake Pietola is going to show up at the Sanford Center? I fully anticipate the best Blake Pietola that they have to offer. With that being said, this is such an intriguing matchup because of how the two teams stack up with each other. Michigan Tech's forward depth is better than Bemidji State's. I think their top end forwards are capable of putting up bigger offensive numbers than Bemidji's top end forwards. That being said, where the biggest drastic changes is how their defensemen stack up. Bemidji State's D-men are miles better than Michigan Tech's D-men right now, where Michigan Tech can go out there, outshoot a team 3-1, and boom, it's a 4-3 game because, the defensive core for Michigan Tech is giving up all grade A shots, whereas, maybe a team like a Mankato or a Bemidji State, they're okay with giving up 30 shots, but you're only going to get 5 of them that could really beat you. And when you have a goaltender like Matthias Scholl backing that, it is really tough to beat. I also think that if Bemidji State plays to their identity where they are physical, that disrupts how forwards play. Michigan Tech's going to have to find depth scoring, even though they are more talented with their forwards. I think finding depth scoring has been a struggle for them in the second half. I think, and this is such a cop-out, so I apologize in advance, but this is one of those games where absolutely nothing would surprise me. Bemidji State wins 7-0, I'm not surprised. Michigan Tech wins 7-0, I'm not surprised. If it's an overtime game, whatever. Nothing in this game will surprise you because I think both of these teams are capable of doing anything. And I do think these are the two best teams in the league, and that's important. It may have not been the right way to get here with how the Michigan Tech game went, but we are here, and these are the two best teams in the CCHA. I'm sad that it's not a best-of-3 series just because I want these teams to play 3 games this weekend. Obviously, that would come with a Bemidji loss, but this is such a fun matchup, and I'm one of the ones that likes that it's on a Friday night, because that means all eyes are on the CCHA this weekend and on that Friday night, and it's going to be a blast. And I'll let Ian get some words in here, but I have some crazy parallels for you guys to close out the show.
Yeah, I think you said it well. I mean, these teams match up well. I think they're the two best teams in the conference, especially given St. Thomas's health down the stretch. They might have had a shout for it, but I think that it, like you said, I mean, it's hard to say that anything could happen, but it's true about these conference tournaments, especially when you get in a 1-game series. Literally anything could happen, and it wouldn't surprise you. We could, if they played a best of 3 series, it might go exactly how the St. Cloud State Western Michigan series went. 3 blowouts in 2 different directions. Like it's up to the team that steps on the ice. And I think that the Beavers have, while they don't have as talented of forwards, I think that their depth is good. They're getting scoring from all 4 lines. We're still waiting on Leighton Road to put one in the back of the net. I think that he's going to do it this weekend on Friday night. He's going to break that little cold spell he has, at least of getting goals. I know he's got a couple of assists lately, but and I think that the Beavers are going to be able to pull this one out. But we saw Blake Piella do it last year, where the Beavers played pretty well. It's just, if you're not getting quality chances at the net, Piella, like you said, he's a different goalie this year for some reason, but last year he was able to make all the easy saves. You had to hit him with something a little bit more creative than just kind of chucking the puck in there and hoping something happens. But I don't have a ton more to say about this game. It's a great matchup. It should be a great atmosphere. I'm super excited. It's a whiteout. I'm glad I bought this jersey a couple weeks ago, because otherwise I'd have to shell out money or find something else in my closet to go up there with. But yeah, I think I'm just really excited.
I'll leave you on this, and then you can close out the show, CJ. How's that?
All right, yeah, let's do it.
In 2008, 2009, that was the last time Bemidji State won their regular season trophy and the league tournament trophy in the same year at home. That year, Bemidji State started the year 3-7, and they won a 6-game losing streak from December 29th to January 24th. They came out of that 6-game losing streak and went 8-2-1 to finish the regular season. They go to the CHA title game and play Robert Morris, and they win in overtime. Matt Reed scores a goal at 8.5 minutes into overtime, sending the Beavers to the NCAA tournament for a 3rd time, and that was the year they went to the Frozen Four. The parallel to this year, Bemidji State. Hold on, I got to pull it up because I'm writing a column on this right now.
Absolutely.
Bemidji State started the year, I believe, 4-7. They get to, again, December 29th, and they go 1-5 in January. They break out on January 20th and start the unbeaten streak in league play, and they finish the year, I believe, 11-1-2 in their last 14 games heading into this one. And that is where I think Leighton Road scores an overtime winner, parallel of Matt Reed.
There we go.
2009. This game goes to OT. It finishes 3-2 with Leighton Road breaking out, the Matt Reed-esque player of this team. Keeps it going. Then they go upset Boston College in Rhode Island. They upset another one. Back at the X in the Frozen Four. Book your tickets on Hennepin Ave. Let's go.
That'd be a parallel, because I believe that year Notre Dame was the number 1 overall seed in that tournament. And I will leave everybody with this. Cheer for St. Lawrence this weekend in the ECAC tournament. That's the only chance the Beavers have of avoiding Boston College.
I don't think it's going to Boston College.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's going to matter one way or the other if it's Boston College, Boston U, Denver, UND. I think that
you got to beat somebody good.
Right. So, and that relies on the Beavers winning this game against Michigan Tech. But yeah, I mean, 1 game away from going back to the tournament, and this time there will be fans in attendance. So if Irie and McLean like the atmosphere this last weekend, imagine the atmosphere, boys. If you get to a Minnesota Frozen Four, I can imagine that would be pretty good.
That'd be pretty awesome. Jared Rubado, sports editor, Bemidji Pioneer. Jared, where can they find you on the Twitters or the X's?
Yeah, find me on Twitter, Jared. You'll see it. I mean, they'll do that. Yeah, that's all I got for a plug. I also want to plug one other thing. Christian Babcock, our sports reporter, wrote a really good story on Dell Duncan Busby going to the CFL Combine. I know you guys do a lot of football stuff. Dell's a great kid. Christian's on top of that beat, and he does a really good job with it. So go read that story. And I should have a pretty lengthy feature on Jackson Judding this week, who transferred from Colorado College to play in games like this, and who I believe is Bemidji State's most important player.
All right. It's a big one. Get to the Sanford Center, watch the game, listen to the game. It doesn't matter. Biggest game of the season, Mason Cup Championship, Sanford Center, Friday night. We'll have a lot of coverage. Give us a follow, Beaver Banter, Facebook, X, YouTube, all the places. We'll see you guys next time. Roll Beavs.